Welcome, viewers, to a fascinating journey through Earth's superior astral, where cosmic secrets and transcendental planes intertwine. Today, we delve into an extraordinary encounter between Ghandria and Kylbran, where revelations about the fate of humanity echo through the corridors of time. In 1932 after Christ, in the midst of a great angelic conclave, secrets that would shape the future of the Earth were whispered in the heavenly recesses. Ghandria, attentive to Kylbran's report, discovers that a great earthly purge is about to begin, led by the spiritual Messiah, the coordinator chosen by the angelic beings. In this intriguing dialogue, Kylbran reveals to Ghandria the crucial role he will play in planning this purge, a secret that was still confidential at that time. As Capellans have been evolutionary catalysts for millennia, the purged Earthlings will be the accelerators of the evolution of a new planet in a primitive stage. The subtext of this cosmic encounter leads us to question: what will be the destiny of humanity? When will the purge actually begin? Join us on this journey of discovery and mystery as we explore the secrets of Earth's superior astral and the designs that shape the universe. You don't know, you are already living all these decisions made in the superior astral of the Earth in 1932. Information is still confidential, but will soon become common use in our sphere. Ghandria's interlocutor listened to him attentively. He had been with a spirit from the mental world, who was summoned to the great angelic conclave of 1932. In this egregious angelic council, the coordinator of the great earthly purge, which would begin in a few years, was chosen. Kylbran had been invited by the coordinator, the spiritual Messiah, to be one of the many planners of the great purge. He had given him permission to have whatever assistance he needed. That was why Kylbran was explaining to Ghandria that the matter was still confidential, as he was inviting him to be his advisor. Just as the Capellans were the Earth's evolutionary accelerators around 5,700 years ago, the same will happen to the Earthlings, who are purged. They will also be the evolutionary accelerators of another planet, which is still in a very primitive stage. And when will this purge begin? It has already started with the appointment of the coordinator. Yes, of course, but I say, in fact, the first waves should be deported within 3 to 4 years at most. We do not have much time. And truth, planetary administrators have determined that the process must be slow and gradual. As always, they want to give every chance of evolution to those who are reborn, as well as to those who are erratic. How will these chances be processed for the reborn? Through suffering with wars, cataclysms, barbarities never seen before. They want all racial, religious, and geographic disputes to be resolved, by hook or by crook, in the next 150 years. But they will also help through waves of spiritualism never seen before. It is true that strange religions and strange thoughts will appear, but they will serve to modify the currently constituted religions. There will be, as never before seen, freedom of expression, bordering on permissiveness, as well as their antagonism, dictatorship and censorship. Taking a brief pause, Kylbran continued, explaining other topics of relevant importance. Soon, the spirit guides of reborn humans will be leading them to new examinations of conscience, to a new form of spirituality, and to the entire message of inner transformation, spiritual improvement and social improvement, which Jesus Christ preached during his stay on earth. A never-before-seen spiritual emergency will also be emerging. That is, a never-before-felt need for transformation will be emerging from within each being. Many will go through this process in a calm and serene manner, finding within themselves the strength for the necessary renewal. Others, as they bring numerous emotional problems that have not yet been completely resolved from other existences, will have a more troubled awakening. The most bizarre phobias will appear, such as claustrophobia, panic phobia, and others, still unknown to the current science of men, which will lead them to psychic and spiritual treatments never witnessed in the past, using regression and self-help, which will be introduced by the loving spirit guides of humanity. All of this aims to resolve issues from the past in order to provide adequate conditions for man's spiritual future. Those who flee the strong appeal, taking positions of hatred and revolt, will only be left with purge. Stand. Everything will be used as instruments available to man for his physical and mental development. Doors never seen before will open. That's right, my dear Ghandria. However, they will also be exposed to the greatest horrors ever seen by any being until now. Ghandria looked at Kylbran with some astonishment. Yes, unfortunately, they will be fratricidal wars caused by the ignominy of man. These are not decisions from our superiors, but we will have appalling massacres in a world war that is about to break out, which will leave the deaths of the past as the pale work of amateurs. In these terrors to come, the last Capellans, the most hardened, the most stubborn of all, the last Alambaks will be slaughtered in fields of horror never dreamed of by the sick minds of men. Are there still reborn Capellans among us? Yes, just over 300,000. They are the last of that species, but today they are candidates for the superior astral world. It has been more than 500 years since the last Capellan abandoned crime and the abomination of the tortuous paths of vice, hatred, and revenge. Many were terribly slaughtered on St. Bartholomew's Night. Others were tortured to death in the Inquisition dungeons. The few who remain are seeking redemption through superlative suffering. They will be crushed by the wheels of destiny, which they turned millennia ago. And the other men? The coordinator assured us that it will be a massive purge. He estimates that 1 in every 200 beings will be taken away over a period of 150 to 200 years. We are talking about more than 100 million people, and much more than double the number of Capellans that were brought to Earth. Yes, but in this interregnum, there were more than 8 billion primitive spirits that they were brought to evolve here over the last 2,000 years. Added to the 6 billion that existed here at the time of Jesus, today we have close to 14 billion among the reborn and those in the lower and middle astral. Putting together all those who gravitate around planet Earth, we have more than 28 billion souls, including the superior astral and part of the mental world. I was recently studying religions and they all talked about a day of judgment, where God will judge men and separate the good from the bad. In this terrible day, good men will stand in the Olam Habiyeh, the world to come, becoming happy in the kingdom of God. Some speak of a planet that will pass close to Earth's orbit, destroying our orb and literally vacuuming up exiled spirits. How right are these men? These conceptions were generated by Capellan reminiscence. The ideas of black moons and planets are the fruit of a mind excited by excessive religious fanaticism, which is one of the worst forms of radicalism. The Capellans went through the day of judgment when the world they were in, the darkness and the lower astral, was destroyed in a terrifying way by spiritual artifacts developed by the workers of Atalanti and Carrion. They therefore had a well-developed notion of what that terrible day would be like. However, there is no specific day, as the purge is a long process. 100 million people were not removed in a single day. I hear that the Earth will be devastated by terrible cataclysms, with mass destruction never seen before, as well as the death of more than 2/3 of humanity, in absolutely terrifying conditions. Will this happen? In the near future, men will discover the fantastic power hidden in the atom, and if they do not find the path to fraternity, and prefer to use extreme violence, a nuclear debacle could actually happen. However, this would have been a choice made by men. The terrifying destruction, which many prophets of the apocalypse advocate, is not part of the plans of the greatest. Yes, there will be destruction caused by earthquakes, tsunamis, typhoons, and other telluric activities, but not in a greater number than what already happens and has been happening for thousands of years. The great destruction will be the annihilation of the lower astral, including its densest areas such as darkness and the great abysses, as spirits from this vibrational range will not be able to live on Earth. We will accept even repentant sinners, those who have a sincere desire to improve and regenerate themselves through new attitudes. However, those who are hardened, those entrenched in positions of hatred will have to restart their learning in much more severe and distressing conditions on the planet yet to come. Primitive, starting their own saga of the Earthlings. Kylbran looked straight into his interlocutor's eyes and spoke to him. We do not want to destroy the Earth, as we are making enormous efforts to bring her material progress, new inventions, new ways of thinking, and an intense personal spiritual emergence. There would be no logic in destroying all of this, leaving a third or less of humanity deeply traumatized, which would require us to undergo specialized treatments for centuries to recover both their minds devastated by an apocalypse, as well as human society in total chaos. Just the thought of a fact of this nature disgusts us immensely. What we want is progress and victory for each person over their imperfections. Know that in Atalante, the great victor was not Varuna, who purged 30 to 40 million spirits from Earth, but mainly Sercha, the spiritual minister responsible for the spiritual and cultural regeneration of the planet, who was able to recover an even greater number of Capellans who remained in that paradise. Varuna then really existed? Yes, as well as all his assistants. And where are they now? They are in the angelic world and were part of the assembly of angelic spirits in the solar system, which concluded the need for an immense purge here on Earth. And Jesus Christ was also in this egregious assembly? No doubt. He is one of the spirits that administer the Earth. For almost 2 millennia, he has been part of the group of planetary administrators who guide us. If I understand correctly, Jesus of Nazareth was Oriphel, renamed Mitra, responsible for the exodus of the Hebrews and the creation of the nation of Israel. That's right, my dear Ghandria. He acquired full lights at various levels before coming to Earth. He reached spiritual adulthood on Tarandat, and then went through several physical existences on another extremely evolved planet, until he was transferred to Earth as the right-hand man of Metatron, his spiritual father, who always had an impressive affinity with him. Here on Earth, he improved himself through countless missions, until he applied to be reborn among the people he had helped to form, to improve them. Their mission was also to help fallen spirits overcome their inferiority so that they would not be exiled to Mesoamerica and other primitive places, as Earth was receiving or was about to receive more than 16 waves of spirits of lower levels, who arrived here in blocks of several million people. These countless groupings of spiritual beings had passed through the primitive stages on their own planets and were transferred to a middle school. The last wave arrived here around 300 years ago, in a total of 2,200,000,000 spirits, who evolved on a planet in another galaxy and who were brought through the astral, sleeping a deep sleep, to be reborn especially in these last centuries. Taking a short break, Kylbran continued. When he was reborn as Jesus Christ, he not only gave the message of love, fraternity, providence, and divine justice, but also underwent an extraordinary initiation to ascend to the angelic worlds. His death on the cross, the ultimate symbol of sacrifice for humanity. And Metatron, and Varuna, and Phanuel, Metratone is part of the administration of our solar system, being one of its administrators. The same happened with Phanuel and Raphael. Michael has become a being of great light, but he is still on Earth, as his mission is to completely recover all Capellans, and there are still some in the final stages of redemption, and he awaits them with love and patience. As for the others, Cabriel, Sandalphon, Uriel, and several others are also part of the Orb's governing council. They are on an evolutionary plane so magnificent that it would be impossible to describe it. They are part of the high terrestrial and solar spiritual councils, but life on these planes expands in such a way that they can experience different experiences at the same time. Does Metatron really already live with God? We all live with God, to a greater or lesser degree, but only universal administrators and those beyond this plane have the possibility of amalgamating with God, drinking directly from the source of absolute happiness. Therefore, Metatron is approaching the holy divine essence, but he is not yet anointed with the most loving Father. And before you ask me, neither is Jesus Christ, because even though he is a spirit of the highest descent, we cannot forget that the Earth is still becoming a planet of average evolution and that we still have a long way to go to God. Kylbran changed the subject and commented that the purge would require a great sacrifice on their part. Everyone would have to abandon the Earth from which they developed to help another world to become civilized through the influx, not always beneficial, of exiled brothers. Yes, of course, I know that. But if I may ask, Master Kylbran, who is our coordinator, the chosen one, the Messiah of the Purge? His spiritual name must remain unknown to the vast majority so as not to be used inappropriately, and I can only tell you that, in addition to being one of the apostles of Jesus of Nazareth himself, he was reborn once again, having been a very high saint veneration. I am not allowed to say anything more about the Purge coordinator, only that it is a spirit of the highest sidereal type. Naturally, I understand your position, but will we have the same processes that so disturbed Atalante, Carrion, and other planets? Why do they have to be different? There was no response from Ghandria. Aren't we all very similar in all quadrants of the universes? Didn't we evolve from the most primitive stages until we reached the stage of reason? Don't we all abuse this magnificent faculty reason until, through dozens of existences, we reach the higher stages? And above them, are there not even more majestic forms of life until we achieve union with the Divine Father, who is also our Divine Mother? And it's true, you're right. If today a difficult phase begins for our planet, we are, on the other hand, envisioning a world to come olam habia absolutely grand. However, it will not be a gift from the gods, but rather an achievement from men. It will not be a religious act, but a scientific fact. Will it be a world of perfections? Of course, the man is not perfect. It is perfectible, and as such it will swing like a pendulum between extremes until it reaches an increasingly perfect stage. However, there will always be new achievements, new ideas, new worlds to discover. Monotony will not occur. On the contrary, the future offers fabulous prospects for all of us. Kylbran smiled, accompanied by Ghandria. But, Master Kylbran, returning to Jesus Christ, I have a huge doubt regarding what happened to your physical body. Could I know what happened in those days in distant Judea? Of course, my friend Ghandria. You may have heard of the phenomenon of dematerialization. Ghandria shook his head positively. Very well, the superior spirits decided that Jesus' body should not be exposed to execration by the members of the Sanhedrin. In this way, they sent a group of specialized workers, who untied the last knots that tied him to the physical body, removing the spirit of Jesus when he was still in his tomb. As soon as the spiritual outcome took place, the superior spirits, through Metatron's mental power, energized the physical body, dematerializing it. There was a huge charge of energy that shook the earth in that place, followed by a luminous explosion, in which Jesus' physical body dematerialized and the atomic particles were released into the atmosphere, being spread over a large area. But, Master, how did they do it? As easy and commonplace as it would be for a man to light a lamp or turn on a household appliance. The science of the spirits of the angelic phases is not yet within the reach of men, but know that there was neither a miracle nor magic. Only the use of wise divine laws, because by altering the energetic field of the physical body, increasing the intrinsic vibration of this field, it transforms into extremely subtle etheric material for a few seconds, enough time to spread it through the surrounding atmosphere, when then returns to the previous stage. In this way, all the material particles in Jesus' body were transformed for a few tenths of a second and were spread throughout the atmosphere over a wide area, being reabsorbed by the Earth's energy. Ghandria nodded his head in agreement. He was truly moved to know the truth about the disappearance of Jesus' body, and, changing the subject, he asked, Master Kylbran, returning to the Capellans, am I to assume that your saga of suffering and pain will be over? Will there not be more Capellans remaining on Earth after the debacles that are about to happen? If we see the Capellans as a spiritual current exiled from their Eden, the story will never end, as we will always have spirits from Atlantis among us. They will just no longer be suffering the hardships of exile, since they will be perfectly integrated with the earthly people, making it impossible to identify them. We have, however, to consider the Capellans as a cultural impulse, and, therefore, at this point the saga of the Capellans merges with the history of the Earthlings, becoming one and of capital importance. We owe our entire civilization to these exiles. Not only the beginning in Sumer, but also several later cultural and religious influences. Note that Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, Confucianism, Shintoism, and even African religions have received massive Capellan influence. Aside from this, the great philosophical currents received such a deep immersion in Capella culture that it would be impossible to distinguish what is purely terrestrial material from Capella influence, whether brought by the exiles or intuited by the spiritual guides who willingly came from Capella. Our culture is so imbued with Capellan influences that we will always continue to be the fruits of this immense exile.